welcome back. Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, and today we're going to be revisiting the annals of history, and what we're going to end up doing is taking a look at the Eryone 400, the X400 printer, the Thinker 400 printer. This was something that came out from Eryone, and in case you didn't know, they ended up, they sell mostly filament. And then they dabbled into a couple of 3D printing machines, one resin printer, and it has been abysmal, especially in their earlier attempts. And suddenly, what we ended up seeing was this rise on Kickstarter of the X400, which is a 400 cubed build area Core XY printer that is supposed to be to fill the niche between hobbyist and industrial. In other words, a prosumer type of machine. With that being said, we do need to make a couple of notes here. First, what you can do for me is to smash the like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. And also, when you hit the like button, I will get over my flu much faster than if you did not. So, yeah, definitely smash those buttons. This came about at a time when I was looking to get into 3D printing, and I've got a little bit of an electronics background. I was an electronics technician for the state of Colorado in the prison system. I've got 11 years of doing that, and then I had communications experience with AM, FM, UHF, taxat radios, all kinds of cool stuff, and did that for over 20 years. And during my time in the military, got to work on some pretty cool stuff. Blue Force tracking systems, I mean, just amazing on how frequency hopping radios that hop at like 500 frequencies per second, so anti-jam capabilities, ComSec security, all of those things. And yeah, just seen a lot. And then as I worked for the state of Colorado in industrial electronics, working on camera systems, installing camera systems, PTZ, fiber optics, control panel doors that you see in prisons, and stun fences, and, automatic detection systems for fences and things like that. Microwave systems for, if somebody walks into an area where the microwave is shooting, you would have alarms go off, and that would go into a computer and that would pop up on the screens. We would do all that stuff into the zones of which were being activated. So yeah, I'm pretty amazing stuff that I've been exposed to. And so I decided to get into 3D printing. Excuse me. I also had a little bit of 3D printing experience while I was in prison, not as an inmate. Being an electronics technician, the prison that I worked at, or one of the prisons that I worked at, had a 3D printing tech kind of they sourced out the 3D printer stuff that they did to civilians. Civilians would come in, and what the one company did is that they would make casts, and they would be 3D printed, and they do the acetone vapor type of thing to smooth them out. And so you had custom 3D casts made on 3D printers, and then they were smoothed out, and then they used inmate labor to do that. So that was my first experience with 3D printers. But when I decided to get a 3D printer, I wanted to go big or go home. And with that, looking over a number of systems, one of them was the Creality K2 Plus. Of course, there is the Prusa XL, which is can be a multi-tool head operation, but at the time that it came out, wasn't doing really well. And, large platform or build area printers were we weren't seeing the K2 Plus yet back then, but we did hear about the X400 from Eryone. So I decided to do some research on that, and it was very problematic from my experience. Now, like I said, I'm not a know-all, end-all of 3D printing. I've done resin printing. Again, I've done industrial electronics and things like that. And when I saw the initial claims of Eryone on their X400, I was very intrigued. But the more I dug and more other people dug into what they were producing on their Kickstarter was very problematic. And that ended up, I think it just ended up being a cash grab. And, people are saying, hey, what the hell? Just kind of some crazy stuff. So let's just jump right in and kind of do a little reminder of what this is. So you have Eryone, which mostly does filament. Like I said, they do a lot of filament. They do some resin, which is next to nothing. And that was based on because they had a printer of their own, which was horrible. As far as their filaments, I haven't seen Eryone filaments. Usually you see eSun, you'll see Creality, you'll see the Prusa, you'll see, some of the big boys of filament printing. But Eryone is just kind of like, it's okay, I guess. I mean, I haven't really seen any reviews on YouTube or anything about them, so they don't strike me as being, a moving force of shakers and movers within the filament world. So with that, they ended up, this is a new website. They used to have an old website, and then they used to have, here is their Eryone LCD resin printer, which is $1,800, which pales in comparison, and they have 0 reviews. So that leads me to believe that whoever bought this didn't leave a review, or nobody bought it. It's just kind of a thing. And then they had 2 other, on their old website, they had 2 other 3D printers that failed horribly, a lot of problems with it, people saying that they weren't getting the support from Eryone, and people were just bricking them and just kind of like threw up their hands and threw the things away because they were not getting the support. So and one of their 3D printers had 0 reviews. The other one had, I think, 10 reviews, but it was like 1.3 or something. It was some drastically low score. And so they took that off their website. So now they've taken off both of the 3D printers that they had in the past, which failed horribly, which were just bed slingers. And now they want us to think that they are the bee's knees of the XY, core, big build 3D printers. And unfortunately, that is not the case. A lot of problems I've gone over in the previous videos that I did. Excuse me, I got to get a drink. I'm getting over a cold. Still fighting the flu a little bit. Voice is a little off, still cough a little bit, but I'm about 90% better. But this is their thing. This is the pre-sale for $2,500, a 400 cube system. And this was like, in my opinion, it was go big or go home. And I wanted a larger printer that could do larger prints, but obviously you could also do smaller prints. And most Core XY printers can do nozzle sizes of 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, and sometimes even 0.8. So you have a wide range of flexibility with large style printers. But with this, that's it right there. Core XY, a lot of these parts that are in here are actually 3D printed, kind of when you look at some of this stuff. And now they're talking about your X400 has entered production stage, and it will take approximately 2 to 3 months from placing an order to receiving goods. Still haven't seen one out in the wild yet. The only ones that we ended up seeing were the ones sent to influencers. And it's funny how after the Kickstarter, nobody's talking about the X400 anymore. And there's probably a reason for that, and we'll look at the Kickstarter page and kind of show you why. Talking about industrial speed and precision. 500 millimeters second speed, Core XY. The problem is that this is kind of outdated compared to things like the Creality K2 Plus or other large build area printers. And this thing is a beast. It is huge, it is heavy, it comes pre-assembled, but it is huge. It is huge. But then again, when you look at it, it's really not that impressive. We can see it here. We got a little tiny filter in the back with a little tiny computer fan to vent out, which I find that odd, being that it's supposed to be a prosumer or filling the niche of being a printer that's between a hobbyist and an industrial system. And they don't even have an attachable vent, for 4 or 6 inch venting or anything like that. It's just a standard little computer fan that's thrown in the back there with little activated carbon charcoal filters. That's kind of slow, precision, normal. Yeah, all this stuff is kind of normal. Open source Clipper. It's from, excuse me, from what we can see, it's kind of an adulterated version of Clipper. And it's, big build area. The problem with big build areas is you have a lot of surface area. You have a lot of air in there. So if you're going to print some exotic materials, you're going to need a heater. And this doesn't come with a heater. And we're going to get into why, even though a ton of people complained about that. Their big thing is that you can stack these up on top of each other. So I don't know about the input shaping. If you've got one printer on top of another and this is printing and it's moving around and this one down here is moving faster, you're telling me that in the real world situation they're going to be able to offset in real time all of that? I don't think so. Yeah, faster than ever. 10,000 acceleration, 500 millimeters per second for speed. Really, we're getting into systems now that are 600 and 700 millimeters per second, 20,000 for acceleration, kind of like the K2 Plus. We've went over that before. High flow rate of 35 millimeters square cube per second. I don't think you're going to be getting that personally from what I've seen, because yeah, it's just going to be interesting. And when we zoom in on some of this stuff, this is 3D printed, this orange here. So, they're printing their own parts. Maybe they're trying to do a thing, take a page out of the Prusa handbook. Talking about efficiency heated bed, 70 watts of heating power, reaches 300 C. On their comments and on their Kickstarter, it ends up that, it can take about an hour to reach that temperature. And there's even some problems because they have a 110 and excuse me, told you I was sick. Smash that like button so I can get better. But they were even saying that there was problems between their 110 and their 220, and it is not dual voltage. So for a system that's $2,500, I don't know, $2,500, and it doesn't even have a chamber heater, and you're no dual voltage selected, that's very problematic. So if we go to the Bamboo H2D, and what does that pop up to be? Because that's something that's kind of interesting. The Bamboo H2D, there it is in all its glory. Of course, it has two heads on that, and we're looking at $2,000. So you're looking at a Core XY printer, and just by itself is basically $2,000 that we see here. If you add on the AMS, you're looking at $2,300. And so when you compare that to the Eryone, which is $2,500, and it doesn't have an AMS, doesn't have a heater, has worse specs than the H2D and a lot of other ones as well. But yeah, a lot of problems popped up with this thing. Everything that's orange is 3D printed. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're going to be paying such a premium, you would think you would get some premium parts. I think Prusa is the only one that can get away with doing that. And that's because they have produced quality over and over again throughout the years. Talks about efficient cooling. Okay, not a big deal. Automatic and streamlined workflow. Yeah. Automatic filament. Breakage detector, which is good, but that's kind of standard these days. Tangle sensor thing, built-in AI camera. I think AI is the new buzzword these days. Anything that has a camera is AI. But yeah, it's 5-inch touchscreen. Okay, whoop-de-doo. PEI plate, which actually it ends up that ended up being a farce if you watch the Aurora Tech channel on how they were doing some prints, and the build plate just kind of flopped up on its own. So obviously there was a lot of things wrong as far as the amount of magnet, the magnet sheet that they had in there, and also the thickness of the PEI plate was lacking, among other things that a lot of other people saw. So supposedly it can print all this stuff, but at the time that this was offered, it didn't even have a heater. So there was a lot of people that were complaining and saying, hey, you're saying this prints all of this stuff. But the problem is it doesn't have a heater, so it can't do that. And actually, there were some engineers and stuff that had left comments on their Facebook page, people who have been doing 3D printing for decades, since the advent of 3D printing. And these engineers and people had said, yeah, this, you have to have a heater. And it got to the point of where it was really problematic because their Facebook group admin guy started getting real snarky with people, with engineers and obviously smart people that were asking very specific questions and insulting these people as instead of answering the question, saying, hey, you can't do this type of material without a chamber heater. And you're talking about a 400 cubed chamber with all of that air. You're not going to reach the temperatures for these certain types of filaments. They said, well, the bed is going to be the heater. But to heat up the mass of air that is on the inside of that thing, they pointed out that a 400 cubed area, what would ended up happening is that it would take you basically an hour, maybe 2 hours, to heat up the chamber just to get to the operating temperature. So in other words, before you even print anything, you would have to heat your chamber between 1 to 2 hours to get it up to the temp to print certain filaments. So yeah, that was a huge thing that went on there. And that just made me scratch my head. And then there was problems with the power supply and how much power it was supplying. And yeah, it was kind of lacking. Carbon air filtering system. Like I said, it's a little computer fan with some carbon activated, stuff. It says like ABS fumes. Activated carbon is not going to filter out the ABS fumes enough to run this on the inside. Excuse me. So the fact that they say that this is a prosumer, between the hobbyist and the industrialist, this machine fits within that niche and answers all these questions, but yet it doesn't have a dedicated adapter for venting systems like other systems have. Next level software, whoop-de-doo, Clipper, whoop-de-doo, open source, they show some of their best prints. And even that, that if my K2 Plus printed something with that amount of problems in it, I know that it's trying to look like wood in some aspects, but I'm just not real impressed with some of the stuff that they did. And just because you throw up a part and do it on one printer, it doesn't mean that's going to be representative of what the printer is going to do in the hands of other people. There's also things where it came up where it was talking about how the Eryone ends up, the X400, of how certain YouTube creators and influencers were given these machines and given machines that were worked and tooled over and set to run perfectly when they didn't even have production models. So it's kind of like you're building the best machine that you can, you're giving it to influencers, but then they still weren't doing things on the production side of the house. And some of the improvements that they had to make, kind of like the heater, ended up being kind of a farce, because if you don't know about consumer electronics or industrial electronics and certification and safety, you'll see why they did some of the things that they did. So when we talk about the Eryone X400, now let's see if we can I do that? Can I save that? Let's see if I can copy that and put that there. Can I put no, it won't do that. Let me save this image. I will just save it to the desktop. And what we'll end up doing is, where is it? There it is. Boom. So that way we got a little bit of a reference to look at. What it ends up is that with this system up here, they didn't include a chamber heater. So this is probably one of the bigger things. The heating element that they have in there and the power supply, people pointed out that it was woefully inadequate. And the times that they were saying to be able to heat up the chamber for exotic filaments or high temp filaments wasn't matching up. People, smart people with math degrees and electronics and, PhDs or whatever, electrical engineers are like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. And so they started backpedaling on all this stuff. And a lot of comments got deleted off of their Facebook page, which I belonged to see what was going on, because the initial specs on this looked incredible. But then the more they dug and the more they put out and the more questions that, they didn't answer the questions, proved to be problematic. And that started to be the downfall of the X400 on their Kickstarter. So talking about the chamber heater, what ends up happening is that if you have a chamber heater and you're going to sell a consumer electronic item in the United States, any electronic has to pass some type of certification. So all that needs to be safety tested. However, if there's a heating element within this that is included in the machine, that's an additional certification that needs to happen. Well, enough people were complaining and saying for the price that you're charging and saying that this is the prosumer system that in print farm machine that you're claiming it to be, and it doesn't have a chamber heater. Excuse me, damn. Where's the heater? Excuse me. So finally, it ends up that they said, okay, well, you're going to get your heater, but it's not going to be an installed heater. Because if you install a heater, they have to get additional certification, and the components that are used in that have to be able to meet certain heat standards. So by offering people an aftermarket heater that is not included with the machine, where you have to pay additional money for, in other words, it doesn't come with the $2,500 price tag, you have to buy that above and beyond. And even in the Kickstarter program, they mentioned this. Oh, great, we got you guys a heater. But the problem is the heater's not included. You're going to have to pay extra. And when people started asking about, well, if you put the heater in, has this been tested and certified with this heater in your system that you are providing? And then there was nothing but crickets. So yeah, it was very problematic. And in other words, they don't want to do the certification. They don't want to pay the money to do that. And my thinking is, if you don't want to do that, Eryone doesn't want to pay the money. Two, they're using substandard electronics components that are not high heat rated, or could be problematic if you do put in a chamber heater. That's why they're offering a third-party heater that's not included with the system that you have to pay extra for. In other words, if you buy the X400 and then, boom, you pay for that, and then you buy the third-party heater that they will sell you, they're not liable for what happens. Kind of slick, huh? That's really slick on what they're doing. No other company has ever done this before. Okay, there was a number of other problems that came up with this system, and it just ended up going downhill from there. So with that, all of the things that they ended up doing, talking about the Eryone 400. Let's take a look at their Kickstarter page, and boom, here's the Kickstarter high-speed 3D printer for print farms. Yeah. There were some pictures that I had them showing a ton of different printers that I thought were photoshopped, but they took down the photos, and so I can't find them anymore. I was going to make a copy of them, but the photos that they had, I can't find those anymore because some of the lines and the way that things lined up, I was late at night. I'm like, that doesn't look right to me. And one day I said, I'll just get it tomorrow. I'll copy it tomorrow, and we'll look into it another day. Well, lo and behold, when I go back, those pictures are gone. So, it ends up, they had 305 backers. So they made $3.467 million to bring this project to light, and they're just in the production phase. Yeah, I don't think this is going to go well. And matter of fact, let's just jump to the campaign side of this. And the funding, limited launch, they did all that, and you look and it says, well, here's one, limited to 100 units. They put this into the thing here on the right-hand side to only 100 units. They reduced the price even more to push the hype and so on and so forth. They had 152 backers, which is weird. Limited quality, 98 out of 250. Okay. April 2025. Here's the thing. It's June, and nobody has had a printer yet. I don't know. That would make me very, very nervous if I back this. I feel sorry for those 152 people, but I don't think 305 people actually backed this, and I'll tell you why. We go down to this one here. We could get two of them, and there were 31 backers for that, so they doubled the pain and anxiety. That was supposed to be delivered in April of 2025. Limited quality, 29 out of 60 left. Again, I'm kind of wondering about that. And then you come down here and you can do the same thing. You can get two of them. There was one backer for that. And then, the backing for this Kickstarter was February 26th to April 11th for 45 days. So only 305 backers. And it's lifetime benefits, lifetime 10% off of all filament on their Eryone website. Limited discount price of $2,000. But really, when you start looking at it, you look at Vorons, you look at some other printers, and you see that the X400 is not that special. And it definitely doesn't justify the price of $2,500 retail, or even the price that they paid for this here on the Kickstarter. Like I said, they send one out to Uncle Jesse. He printed out some stuff on that. Aurora Tech Channel had a video on there, and it ends up that they found some very problematic issues. Like we said, what everybody else was saying, and yet, hundreds and hundreds of people were saying this on their Facebook group and in the comments, with Eryone and so on and so forth. No heated chamber. We released an active heated chamber that is available to add to your pledge. So in other words, you have to pay for it. But they're not going to be liable, and they didn't do the testing with the heater in the system to get the certification. Magnetic print bid issues. In other words, when Aurora Tech Channel printed something, it ends up that it bowed, and it was horrible. It says here that they changed the voltage switch, but in some of the comments on their Kickstarter page, you see that there's even problematic where that hasn't been addressed. Front USB port retained, Wi-Fi and, built-in Wi-Fi module will be included. Good Lord, this flu is terrible. And we're talking about a Wi-Fi module. How much is a Wi-Fi module? Pennies. And yet they're making this out to be a big thing. Oh, we're going to include Wi-Fi. Air filter will be changed from a printed part to a molded part. Whoop-de-doo. That doesn't matter. It's still like a little computer fan, it's a decent-sized computer fan, but it's not the industrial, print farm thing that they're claiming it to be, because there's no adapter like you would see on such systems that would be hooked up into a filtration and vent system. They're talking about some other stuff here. XY belt adjustment will be changed to automatic adjustment. They've said that, but we haven't seen it. Nozzle cleaning strip is no longer included, because who wants a clean nozzle? Even though that seems to be the standard these days with Core XY printers, they decided to take that away. In some things it's like, we're improving this, and then they say, well, we're taking away the nozzle cleaner because you won't need that, because you're not going to be doing a print farm with that. Maybe that's why. Heated bed temperature can reach a total max pressure temperature of 120 C. Hot end assembly has been upgraded for increased durability. Magnetic device for the glass doors will be included. The magnetic devices are called magnets, so that the doors, they'll put a magnet on the door part so it hits the metal of the machine and it will keep the door closed. That's magnetic device. And I really have a problem when you have people like this that get these machines and don't really put them through their paces, because now we've heard absolutely nothing. And that's very problematic, because you get some people, I like Uncle Jesse, I like a number of Nathan Builds Robots, I like, of course, the Aurora Tech Channel, and of course I like mine as well. But I'm just a tiny fish in that big pond, if even that. I'm a tadpole. But the thing that I don't see with the X400 from any of these influencers that did these reviews on these custom machines that they received. Nobody is saying like Grounded Effects or Faux Hammer or anything like that. Well, you will have people or Frankly Builds, Frankly Build, stuff like that. Other 3D printing enthusiasts and people who are well into this genre, none of them had said, you know what, this is a great machine. I'm keeping it. It's my daily driver for cosplay, this, that, or whatever. Nobody has said this. And so that it's important on what people say, but also what they don't say. And when people don't say that, hey, I'm setting aside, my Bamboo, or I'm setting aside my Creality, Ender 5 Max, super large, or the K2 Plus, or whatever it is, I'm setting those aside, and this is going to be the daily driver. Nobody has said this about the X400. And since their Kickstarter has been over, you've heard zip. Nothing from any of these people. That ought to tell you something. And it's just, you got to be careful who you listen to. I'm not saying or throwing any shade on any of these people, or, I think Aurora Tech Channel did the best video review of these things. These other people got tailor-made machines, and whether you get that in your production model or not will be a different story. So, and the funny thing I want to go over is kind of how they muddied the waters on their Kickstarter page. So let's go on to this, and we see that they say it's production grade versus consumer grade. The X400 is tailored for professional and production use. But again, you don't have a large enough power supply, or you don't even have a heated chamber in this thing as standard. You have lower speeds, you have lower acceleration than other printers, and then what they end up doing here, which I thought is so comical, here is their system here, the X400, and then they have this here. And if you zoom in here, yeah, they blurred out the picture. That is an Ender 5 Max, which is a 400 cubed machine as well, which is very interesting. And then they have their machine, which is an enclosed machine. This over here is not. So in other words, you're going to be printing PLA, and you have to wait for the enclosure that Creality is supposed to be coming out with. Excuse me. Good Lord. Horrible. Pre-assembled, complete 3D printer. There's a little assembly, but the majority of it is done. And then they say, in this kit, it takes an hour to assemble multiple parts with 2 people, which is an absolute lie. So automatically, we're seeing some straw man arguments here of trying to hype up their system by putting down a totally different non-enclosed system with their enclosed system, which is really shady, in my opinion. I don't know. It's kind of like comparing, we're going to compare NASCAR with a Prius. It's just two totally different things. Fully enclosed for constant temperature control, but they don't have a heated chamber at the time that they did this. This is an open chamber. Well, how can you compare those two things? They're like apples and oranges. The print speed on this is 500 and smooth surfaces, but those may show vibration marks. Where's the proof? And by the way, when you also look at the printer that they're trying to, go against, it's actually faster than 500. All metal frame, Core XY, 7 linear rails, cost minimized with a single mineral rail lead screw. Who cares? All of these, but then over here they just say basic PETG and TPU 95A. Again, it's an open system. Of course, it's not going to do those things. So you're comparing apples and oranges here. Stackability, yes. No additional racks are needed. AI, again, I think AI is highly overrated. And then, it's just, it talks about large build area, built for production. There's no insulation in this thing whatsoever, so you're talking about a lot of heat loss. You can stack them up, but it's not as it's not the bee's knees. It really isn't. And, just by putting out all of those things and comparing apples to oranges really did a disservice to this. It just shows how bad the company is into not putting out facts, but just putting out bias. And, why would you compare an open frame system with an enclosed system? Oh, because you can't compete with the other enclosed systems that are on the market today. So, 3D printed things here. They're taking a thing from Prusa, real-time monitoring, whoop-de-doo. That's all standard these days. Easy assembly. You throw a couple things on there. The air filter. I mean, look at that. It's a computer fan. And on the other side, there's no duct or adapter to hook to a 4-inch or a 6-inch tubing for ventilation if you're doing those other things. Next level software, I don't know. That's not really a thing. I'm sure they did some stuff and they printed out some stuff, which they show, but there's a big difference between building a system and making it work versus a production system that is mass produced. So, it's just very, 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 very problematic. Let's see if we can get down to materials. Because how much did they say it weighed? Gross weight 74 kilos. Holy crow, 74 kilos. You're going to have some problems with that because the delivery of that thing, just as kind of like what we ended up seeing with the K2 Plus, is that with such a heavy system, it's not going to be handled well by delivery people. So you're going to have problems because it's going to be rough handled. And when you're talking to 74 kilos, you're talking about 163 pounds, 163 pounds, which is 60 some odd pounds heavier than the gross weight of the K2 Plus. And the majority of problems, in my opinion, with the K2 Plus is the damage that is incurred because of the poor handling with that system. So, just a lot of different problems, with this, and it's just not for a unit that costs $2,500 by itself with no chamber heater and no advanced bells and whistles like you see on other systems, whether it's Bamboo or Creality K2 Plus or other systems, even the Vorons and things like that. This is a Kickstarter cash grab. That's what it is. It is there. And if you look back at the two other printers that they had, which were bed slingers, what you're ending up, they had horrible customer service. They had horrible technical support for those machines, and they discontinued them. They got rid of them. They used to have the two machines on their website, then they got rid of one, and then they got rid of the other one. So now the only thing they have is that immensely overpriced resin printer and this thing over here. It's bad. It's very, very bad. And we're going to take a look at some of the reasons of why I think this is bad. And a lot of other people said it was bad. And the proof is in the pudding when you look at the comments on the Kickstarter. So the Kickstarter's over. But before the Kickstarter finished, what we ended up seeing, let's see if we can move this out of the way a little bit. When we look at the comments, there's 332 comments. And going through all of these, when you start going through and you see some of the problems that people bring up, but then later on you see things like, we should get to, showing 10 of 10, this person canceled their pledge. And then this person, they canceled. And then you start seeing more and more, and this person canceled their pledge, and this person, 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 and it's just more and more you see a number of people that canceled their pledges. And when we're talking about, there's a bunch of them right there. So out of the 300 comments that were made, and a lot of the comments were from Eryone because they're responding to people who are commenting on this, people who had backed and pledged to back this thing, over 100 of them canceled their pledges. 100 canceled their pledges. It doesn't even have a filament cutter. It's just, crazy. There's another one, cancel. And again, I went through every single one of these, and when you start going through them and you find out, counted them all up, over 100 people canceled their pledges on this thing. So either people saw through that this thing is a pile of steaming crap, or what it ended up being is that Eryone actually had their own people pledge to buy to kind of build the hype. And then when the Kickstarter ended up, and then boom, all of a sudden those pledges went away. So I think it's a combination of the two. I think it was more so of Eryone having fake buyers and fake pledgers to boost the numbers, to kind of drum up some hype on this thing. And of course, there is the Facebook advertisements that they had. They had a number of advertisements where they had, a few hundred clicks and views, nothing. And then they had other Facebook ads that had 20, 30, 40, 50,000 engagements, clicks, views, likes, comments. But there's one that I pointed out in a previous video where all of the people, except for myself and a couple other white guys from the United States, one guy was from Australia, they were all from Indonesia. Everybody saying, "Oh, this is awesome. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm going to get. I can't wait. I've waited for this to come out." And those odd sounding comments, but in other words, they bought clicks and views from people that were from Indonesia that had houses where they didn't even have electricity. And yet you're saying, "Can't wait to get my hands on one of these." Your house doesn't have electricity. So nothing in their profiles. I spent way too much time going into this and looking at profiles of the people that actually left comments to verify. But the majority of them, a lot of them didn't have electricity. Not one of the hundreds of people that I checked on those Facebook ads that replied and said, "Yeah, I'm getting this. This is awesome. Can't wait to be a part of this, blah, blah, blah." Nobody had anything about 3D printing in their profiles prior to that. But they got the clicks and views, and it was astounding, the number of likes, clicks, and views. You had people that didn't even know what was 3D printing that were commenting, and, "Oh, I can't wait to put this in my shop." And it's like, you don't have a shop. You basically live in a tin shed. You don't have a shop. They bought clicks and views in Facebook Marketplace and stuff to pump up the numbers. And again, the only other people that commented on these things were people like myself or others that saw problems with this and was calling it out. And then when the Kickstarter ended, boom, all of that went away. Any type of promotion on Facebook was gone, which is very odd when you compare that to somebody like Bamboo. Bamboo does a Kickstarter with their system, and as soon as the Kickstarter was over, you saw Bamboo machines. You saw videos. You saw continued engagement on social media for those machines. We didn't see that with Eryone. Again, which leads me to believe that, it's a cash grab. And the fact that they were supposed to be delivering these things in April, which is April, May, June. We're in June now, right? Yeah, we're in June. It is June 10th. And April, they were supposed to be delivering these things, and they're not. So April, May, June, we're coming up on a month and a half past the deadline of whoever even ordered first still hasn't gotten their machines yet, and a number of people are complaining. So that's $3,467,734 to help bring this project to life out of 305 backers, with over 100 people that canceled their pledges, and we don't even see one being delivered yet. When they said, "Oh yeah, they're ready, they're going to be going out the door any minute now," and we can't wait. April's going to be it. It's you hear crickets. So it's very, very problematic on what they ended up doing. And even when you go back to the the Kickstarter, even though it is over, and last updated was May of 28 of 2025, some updates, upgraded parts based on beta testing program. You shouldn't be in the beta testing. You said you were going to deliver in April. Before the release of the final version of Thinker X400, we launched a beta testing program, got lots of feedback and suggestions. Appreciate reviewers and partners because you can develop a better products for our customers. Here's what we've upgraded. Port for the USB stick is directly in front of the printer, and there is only switch on right side of the printer. So they have an industrial emergency off switch and a USB port on the front. Whoop-de-doo. Wi-Fi module is set as a default function. That's an upgrade because of your beta testing. We added 2 magnets on top of the glass door when the door can be closed tightly. That's the upgrade. Seriously, really, this upgrade the way to adjust the XY axis belt when you find that the XY belts are loosened. You can release the 4 screws that move the extruder. Manual, the belt will automatically be tensioned after, then tighten the 4 screws. Yeah, it's not automatically tensioned because you have to release 4 screws and you're doing it manually. So, but even then, it's like you have automatic tensioning on the K2 Plus, which is significantly less than this thing, and you get a 350 cube build area. But yeah, and there's, there are 3D printed parts in orange, stuff like that, and even that one there you can see. We changed the white belts to black belts. Okay. The thickness of the PEI sheet was increased from 0.4 to 0.5. The magnetism of the magnetic substrate was increased as well, which will make the PEI sheet fit better on the printing bed. Actually, notice how they're trying to minimize what actually happened on the Aurora Tech channel was that they printed out some stuff and the PEI sheet ended up warping up off of the magnetic material that they had. So they said, we're just going to increase it a little bit so it'll better fit the printing bed. No, it's not better fitting the printer bed. You're trying to correct a faulty thing that you designed to begin with that it seems like every other printing company has been able to do successfully. So yeah, it's just kind of it's an odd thing for them to brag about. The draw of the heat bed has been increased to 800 watts, which will decrease the heating time dramatically. On the comment section, if you read through the 300 and some odd comments that they had, some people even showed some how long it would take, and that it's still going to take a long time if you need a lot of heat and to heat up that massive air area that you have. It's going to take a minute because it doesn't have an active heated chamber. Speaking of the active chamber heater is an option for customers. The chamber heater is 300 watts. The temperature of the chamber with active heater chamber will reach 70 degrees, which is more. We increase the orange and black printing part from PETG material to high-speed ASA material, which will be more heat resistant. But the thing is, the heater is an additional purchase for you, and do you think you should get a chamber heater and get this system without a chamber heater and have to pay extra for the chamber heater for $2,500? Bamboo doesn't have a problem with that. My K2 Plus doesn't have a problem with that. What is more, we have upgraded the power supply unit to wide voltage, which is more convenient. But remember, the heat bed is still divided to, here it is, 110 220 version and 220 volt 240 version, because the heat B is powered directly by the AC. Be careful when you use the printer. I don't know. That doesn't fill me with a lot of warm fuzzies. But yeah, for $2,500 for this system, you're talking about a system that is, let's see, we get back up to the top here, retails at $2,500, shipping calculated at checkout, which, yeah, you're gonna pay some. Let's see if we can add to cart. Let's see if we can figure out. Let's go ahead. So, tax and shipping, calculated checkout. Obviously, I'm not going to buy this thing. Colorado. I don't know. We'll just put Lawrence, Colorado. I don't know. Something. But let's see if we can continue to shipping to see if we can get an idea. We got to put all that information in. I'm not going to do that. But with something that weighs 163 pounds, yeah, you're going to be paying some serious money for that. And again, if we compare it to the Bamboo H2D, just by itself, that's $2,000, and you get a 350 by 320 by 325. Active chamber heater, dual voltage, no problems there. Of course, you get some other bells and whistles with the H2D, but even then, I mean, you're going to save $500, and you're going to be able to do a lot more. And it has a dual head system on here. If we look at the K2 Plus, and we take a look at that, the system that I ended up getting, which I'm very happy with. And people were afraid of the trade wars and everything. The trade wars and blah, blah, blah. Well, what do we end up seeing with the tariffs and all that? It's actually gone down in price. It's now to $1,500. So it's less than what I bought it for. So, yeah, and that's with the combo. That's the combo. Isn't that insane? If you just got, without the CFS, it's $1,300. So you could essentially, the price of the Eryone X400 is just insane when you look at these different systems that have way better track records, for their printers. Let's see if we can continue down on some of this. I know all the pictures and this and that. I just want to get to the specs. But when you start looking at systems actually comparing apples to apples, an enclosed system, oh, come on, seriously. I really hate this stuff. Okay, there we go, the specs. When we start getting down to the specs of the thing and actually comparing an enclosed system with the Eryone X400, look at the rated power, 1,200 watts of power. You only have 800 on the X400. They have dual voltage system. I don't have to flip a switch or be worried or be careful when printing. That little comment from the Eryone X400. It just, 600 printing speed, acceleration is 30,000 instead of the 10,000 that they have. Power loss recovery, all of the things. There's a lot of things. Yeah, power loss recovery. We don't even know if there's power loss recovery. It's not even mentioned on the X400. Input shaping, yes. Active belt tensioning, heated chamber, RFID, auto leveling, all of this stuff. Wi-Fi, all of these things that, Wi-Fi, but that's an upgrade for them is to have Wi-Fi when every other company is like, that's standard, standard USB, Ethernet, that's all big companies do that. It's not a big deal. And then if you look at the languages, what's funny is I think with the Eryone, you don't get a lot of these languages. I think it's like 2 languages. Let me see if they still have it on here. Specs. There was a spec sheet that I saw, and it had like English, Chinese, and I think one other language, and that was it. It was like, how does that work? Other people are going to have problems with this. So, a lot of different things that pop up with the X400 that they are saying is, groundbreaking and prosumer and things like that is just not making the grade when we actually look on this. And unfortunately, like I said, all of the people, all the reviewers and the movers and shakers in 3D printing that looked at this thing and did reviews, or at least got paid to do a review or whatever it is, paid endorsement for this, and got good machines. And again, it's easy to make an individual machine. It's totally different to make a good machine in mass quantities. So I think what we're going to end up seeing, since we haven't heard anything and they're still going through beta testing, haven't delivered, they missed their delivery date. The X400 is you're going to have a lot of unhappy people, and none of these influencers or people like Uncle Jesse, Frankly Built, or I don't think Frankly Built got one of these, but Aurora Tech Channel, none of these people that did the reviews on these things or looked at them said, you know what, this has impressed me so much, this is now my daily driver for being a big build area printer. Zero. Nobody has said that. Which that is huge. So sometimes it's not what people say, but what they don't say. You have people like Grounded Effects or, Faux Hammer that ended up saying, hey, well, this machine that, they sent it for me to review, I used it, and then you never hear of some other machines after that. But when you hear them do a review and then they say, well, now this is the machine, I put my other ones away because this is my daily driver, that gives me more warm fuzzies. We don't see this with any influencer. And we haven't seen anything, not one in the wild yet. And so I think that $3.4 million that went to the people that backed this thing, the 305 backers, I think they're going to have a lot of unhappy people when they realize that they were selling hype. And when you start comparing the specs of the X400 with other machines like the Bamboo H2D, even the K2 Plus with a slightly smaller build area, or the Ender 5 Max, which has a 400 by 400 by 400 cube area, and you start looking at the specs, you're finding out the X400 is vastly overpriced. There's not enough bells and whistles. It is a very Barney Basic machine. It's a heavy Barney Basic machine. And then you combine that with the fact of how they did not support their other machines, which just magically disappeared from their website. You can still find it. I did videos and I show those two machines, but they couldn't support those with technical support. They couldn't supply parts for those. So if they can't do it with little bed slingers and a little resin printer, what makes you think they had a come to Jesus moment and suddenly they have tons of money to produce this thing and support it like Bamboo Labs or Creality or any other big company like Prusia and so on and so forth? You're very trusting. I am not. I am absolutely not that trusting. So, and I tell you, the weight of this thing is going to cause problems. Just like the weight and the poor handling that a lot of people experienced with similar machines, like the K2 Plus is like 100 pounds. I think the majority of the problems came because of the poor handling doing shipping, because it's such an odd-shaped item. It is heavy. It's not easy to move around. You got a couple handles on it, but again, try lifting up 100 pounds in front of you. I can do that, but the majority of people can't. And you're talking delivery drivers that don't go to the gym. I've seen people kick heavy boxes off of trucks and platforms for UPS. The interwebs is littered with people who, can't and don't take pride in their work as delivery people. And that's why you have a lot of problems with these larger, heavier printers, is because of that rough handling. The good thing is I'm retired in Korea, so my K2 Plus, people take much more pride in their work as delivery drivers and delivery people here in Korea and also in Japan. So I was very concerned about seeing the K2 Plus in the fact that it was like, oh, they get all these bad reviews. But when I looked at the reviews here in Korea and Japan, next to none had great reviews. And I think it comes down to the handling of the machine during delivery. And with an item that ends up being 160 some odd pounds, almost 165 pounds, You're going to have additional shipping charges. They're not eating the tariffs like Bamboo or some other companies like Creality are eating the tariffs that have been imposed by the current administration in the United States. So in other words, they've dropped the prices and they're still selling those machines. So they're still making money. Eryone has not dropped any prices. And when asked about this, it's very problematic because they're like, well, we don't know if we can, it's tight as it is, And so for a substandard machine, they say they don't have any wiggle room. And it's like, I think there's wiggle room. I think there's wiggle room. Zombie Hunter 115, he posted this early. He says, I can get a Bamboo H2D for that cost. I know, right? And you get two heads on it. So, yeah, very problematic with the Eryone X400 and also on previous videos that I did on them on how they made up reviews on some of the products, and then when I highlighted that, they deleted all that stuff off of their website and they made a new website, which is kind of funny. Again, they use stock photos for advertising and names of people that obviously weren't real people, and I pointed that out, and then all of a sudden those things disappeared. So yeah, they were in that was during the time when they were really pushing the Kickstarter and the Facebook advertisements. But as soon as the Kickstarter was over, nothing. Done deal. And I think a lot of people are going to get screwed. It's basically you could have just bought a Voron. What is the large size Voron? Voron printer. Voron Design ends up, they're coming up with a new one. Printers, let's take a look at that. The Zero. Because they're coming out with a new machine. Which is, and what is it, the 8? Voron 8? I think it is. Voron 8. Can't even remember which one that is. 1.8 or whatever. Soval. Or was it the Soval V08? Maybe that was it. Yeah, I think it was the Soval V08. So, and that one was this one here. Yeah. 350 by 350 by 345. $550. And it's like, look at that. You got your little thing there. Let's see some of the specs on this. Voron 2.4. Yeah, you might have to build it, but it's 200 millimeters per second faster than the Eryone X400. Acceleration is 40,000 on this versus their 10,000 on theirs. So print volume, camera mode, linear rails, things like that, adaptive area, pressure advance input shaping, open source, remote control, independent Z motors. Well, that's pretty good. Efficient heating kit, multi-material. So yeah, you can end up, for what you can get for a Soval SV08 for $550, why would you spend $2,500 for a machine that is basically the same and is like 50 millimeters bigger on all three axes? It definitely doesn't justify that type of money. And again, when you look at these other big machines, what was the other machine we want to take a look at? Flagship series 3D printers. Let's take a look at that. The Ender 5 Max, I think it was. There it is, the Ender 5 Max. I mean, that's $800, and that's a 400 cube system, Core XY, 700 millimeters per second. It doesn't come with an enclosure yet, but it's supposed to. Dual Z-axis motors. Remember on the comparison that Eryone X400, they said that only has a single? Yeah, so they lied on that. Multiple blah, input shaping, 55 decibel, Wi-Fi, all of these things is standard on this machine. But yeah, I mean, this is way better than the X400, aside from, they're going to have an optional enclosure for this thing, but and maybe a chamber heater. But yeah, this is way better than their system. And this thing is $550 or $800. you know, I just don't see the X400 doing anybody any good. And I think some people got excited about the hype. The people that maybe don't know or don't have an electronics background or can't or didn't compare, that machine with other, good machines on the market, and they're going to lose it in the shorts, unfortunately. So, yeah. This thing, what does it end up? Let's see if we end up some of the specs on this. So 400 cubed for $800. Nozzle diameter 0.4 with also 0.6 and 0.8. Power loss recovery, which I don't think they had on the other one. I don't know, maybe it did. They could do all of these if you had the enclosure. This does a bunch of languages, and of course the other ones don't as well. Of course, that's only got 16 reviews on this, but so far there's been a lot of people that have enjoyed this, and it has gotten some good reviews. But again, why would you spend $2,500 when you can get something for $800? Or the K2 Plus when you can pop that thing and get something that is $1,500. Save the rest of that money, with getting a combo system. Even if you don't get the combo system, let's just try to do apples to apples without the CFS. It's $1,300. And it used to be $1,500, so it's going down in price even more. If you're interested in buying the K2 Plus, I got a link down, an affiliate link. If you use it, great. If you don't, great, whatever. But the whole thing is this whole Eryone ended up. It's just kind of a farce. I think it was honestly, I think it was a Kickstarter cash grab, and based upon the previous machines that they've had in the past that they have abandoned, I think a lot of people are going to get to a place where they're going to be like, shit, I made a bad choice in picking this machine. Can it be redeemable? $2,500 retail price. But even at the Kickstarter price, it was like people were saying, it's nothing that special. It's too much for not enough. And that's that's exactly how I feel about this thing. The X400 is so bad, it's making me sick. So anyway, that's what we got going on. We're talking about the Eryone X400. Usually if you see a good machine or a machine that builds itself up as being all that in a bag of chips, you will see reviewers that will, and influencers that will say, hey, this is now my go-to machine, and nobody said that. And again, other problem areas with that machine, it's definitely... it's a cash grab. I feel sorry for the people that got this thing, because I think what we're going to end up seeing, I may be wrong, but I think we're going to see a lot of disappointed people. And when you have zero sales and you haven't met your delivery date and you're still doing beta testing, and unfortunately there seems to be some other problems as well behind the scenes, yeah, I don't have high hopes for the X400. I don't think we will be seeing it next to Bamboo. We won't be seeing it next to Crealities. We won't be seeing it next to Prussia's, the big three, or Vorons, or anything like that. People that are actually putting out much better machines and better quality machines, I think it's just going to be, boom. Zombie Hunter. He looks like a waste of money. Yep. I 100% agree. That is, you said it all. So anyway, that's what we got going on. I just wanted to kind of rehash this stuff on the Eryone X400, Thinker X400. Again, you need to be careful. Kickstarter things are problematic, but when you have over 100 people that canceled their pledges because these people couldn't answer simple electronics questions, and the specs and some of the things that they were claiming just didn't make sense. Yeah, that tells you something right there. So yeah, I feel sorry for the 305 backers, because it should have been 400 or 500 backers. But then again, I just find it odd that there was a lot of people that backed it, that as soon as the Kickstarter, as soon as it's getting close to the Kickstarter, all of a sudden all those, a bunch of people canceled. So that leads me to believe, I don't know, I'm just guessing, that Eryone had some fake backers on their Kickstarter, and then they pulled out just before the very end. But then you had a lot of people that pulled out that were smart. So Zombie Hunter ends up saying, I'm not a fan of Kickstarters. Generally not. I've backed a couple of things, but they were smaller things. One I kind of got, it worked, but it wasn't, as much as or as good as I wanted it to. The most recent Kickstarter thing that I ended up doing was one of those ultrasonic blades, cutting blades. So I did that. So that's, it's like $60, $70 or whatever it was. So, I can throw that in there, and I'm not too worried about it. But unless it is a real big company like Bamboo, or, larger companies that are, and now you have companies that are doing Kickstarter that don't even need to Kickstarter it. So again, it's a cash grab. They're able to get an influx of money to come in, and then they build the systems, obviously. Unfortunately, Eryone just tried to make it sound like, oh, they had pictures of all these machines in the background just waiting to be shipped, and now we're finding out you haven't even shipped anything yet, and we're in June. So, yeah, just makes you sick. Just makes you sick. So anyway, but the question is, some of the things, some people have asked me, am I happy with my K2 Plus? Yes, I am. I think some of the quality on the K2 Plus could be a little bit better, but for the prints that I do, and it ends up, I've got like this bad boy here. Of course, it's all whited out now. Let's see if we can get rid of this. But some pretty detailed prints here. That turned out pretty darn good. And we're talking about a layer height of 0.16, which ended up working out really good. And then I've got a number of other figures. I'm going to be going bigger, as you see the Hulk back there. And this one will turn out better for the camera view, because I ended up putting some primer on there, and I still got to do some layer line stuff, but for the most part, yeah, this thing turned out rocking. And I think this is going to be a real good one. This is going to be the Hulk that I want to print out at about 5 feet tall. So that is going to be killer. And then another print that I just recently did was this Warhammer figure here, and you can see how that turned out. I was pretty amazed. This was a 32 millimeter miniature. It ends up, it just, man, it turned out really, really nice. So yeah, throw some filler primer on there. Minimal sanding at best. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is, even though it's got a few layer lines up on the top, if you can see that. Yeah, you can see some of that. Maybe I'll smooth that out. But pretty much going to keep that the way it is. But definitely want to do one big Hulk. That's about 5 feet tall. But when I started looking at the like how long it's going to take just to do the base itself, was going to take something like, I don't know, 3 months or something. Yeah, the Hulk looks great. And it's based off of, let me show you, which is this guy. This is what he's supposed to look like. So this guy I ended up painting, and my first kind of like big painting with airbrushing and then some washes and things like that. I think some different colors ends up, the Hulk turned out really good. So you can imagine something like this being 5 feet high, 5 feet tall. Yeah, that would be crazy. But that turned out really good. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. But this is what I want to be 5 feet tall. That would be awesome. So yeah, the things you do when you're retired. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on. Just talking about the X400. Other than that, there's not a lot we're seeing on the realm of 3D printing, FDM printing or FFF printing, which whatever you want to say it is, other than the Bondtech, INDX, and what they're doing, which is crazy. And if you haven't checked out that, you really, really need to look into that, because that is going to be the next game changer. If you're going to print the Hulk 5 feet, you might as well just go life size. I know, right? It's kind of like, I mean, I'm 6'2" and I'm 260 pounds, but yeah, maybe I'll do him 6 foot. Yeah, and go big or go home, right? Isn't that it? Yeah, it's only a couple of feet higher. It's only kilos of going to be the next big thing, because the way this system works with induction coil heating of the filament, it's going to take minimal time to be able to do these things and do filament changes. It is going to be incredible. Zombie Hunter ends up saying, I want to print a life-size K2SO, and he's nearly 8 feet high. Wow, that would be killer too. That would be killer. But this index system, I think this is going to be the next big thing that we're going to see in 3D printing, because of the induction system that they have, and it is impressive. There's the head, and it's just like, it ends up tool changer system comprised of a single smart tool head with multiple thin passive tools. It's incredible. When you see the videos on this stuff, it is definitely something that you have to see in what it could end up doing. And some of the videos, Bondtech, 9 years ago. No, that's not what I want. INDX Bondtech. There it is. Boom. You got to see this. This will blow your head back. Skip.
Empower your filament 3D printer. Fast procedures, wireless, and contactless tools. Near zero waste. Cost effective. Self-adjusting dual drive technology for different colors and materials. Set yourself free and focus on your creations. Bondtech Index. Multiple technologies, countless ways to create.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the videos on that, oh my gosh, it is impressive. That is going to be a game changer for the 3D printing industry, especially if you're doing multi-material. This system will be the one to follow. If you're doing multi-material and you're worried about waste, you think the bamboo H2D is all that in a bag of chips. Wait till that comes out, till that Bondtech index system comes out. And I think they put it on a, what was it? On a Voron Zero, I think it was, or Mini or whatever it was. It had like 5 tool heads on it. And the system was like $250, and each one was like $35. So again, amazing. And the contactless, the coil heating system, which heats up and cools down like faster than anything we have right now, which is going to be amazing. And then minimizing the amount of waste that you have on doing multi-material prints is going to be the leader when it comes to multi-material printing. So when you have your Prusa, your XL, when you have the Bamboo H2D, those are going to pale in comparison to the index system. So that is going to be the next big thing. Am I into multi-material printing? No, but I'm definitely, it's going to be awesome, I think. And just being able to have the flexibility to upgrade a system to have one of these as a single head or a dual head, or have one head printing your material, your model, and the other one doing your support system or whatever it is, or the colors or different materials. This and the way that it does it is just truly amazing. So yeah, that is going to be an interesting thing. So check out the videos from Bondtech on that. That is going to be amazing. So there are talking about doing some venture with some companies, so that maybe they can put out a kit for company has their machine and you can upgrade it to an index system. Other than that, we haven't heard, but they're implying that they are in talks with that stuff. Zombie says, yeah, I've been looking at the Anycubic 2 Max or the Elegoo 4 Max. Yeah, I mean, if you're just doing PLA, those seem to be some good systems as well. I got a buddy of mine, I think he picked up the Anycubic system, and if I'm not mistaken, he likes it as well. Elegoo 4 Max, I haven't looked at, to be honest with you. I took a gamble on the K2 Plus, so Elegoo 4 Max, Neptune 4 Max. So let's take a look at that thing since you brought it up. And where are we? Where am I? Why is that in the way? Take a look at this. So there is, stop that, get out of the way. So Neptune 4 Max. Oh, okay, I remember this. Yeah. Actually, I saw this. Uncle Jesse was doing some videos on this. 420 by 420 by 480. Wow, that is a big printer. 500. Yeah, I know. 500 millimeters per second. 121 11 by 11 bed leveling area. That's good. 300 support all of those. Wi-Fi LAN USB. That is a huge build area. That is crazy. 500 millimeters per second, which, 500, 600, 700. The top speed on these things, if you don't know about 3D printing, you're not going to be going 500 millimeters per second. Your daily driver is probably going to be around, 250-ish, somewhere around there, 300, maybe 350. But the build area, that is crazy. 420 by 420 by 480. Wow. Well, good. Kind of wondering about there's the extruder. Ceramic. I wonder if it's like a quick disconnect. I think the Creality needs to do a quick disconnect system soon. And other than that, it just kind of goes through the machine. Pre-installed clipper. Massive. Extruder upgrade hot end. That looks pretty good. Cooling system, a bunch of fans, dual-sided build plates. Oh yeah, somebody was talking about the fans and stuff and says kind of loud, but I mean, for that type of build area, that is insane. Wow. Gross weight, 26.35 kilograms. That's not bad. Of course, you have to put it together, but that's kind of cool. But yeah, that looks very interesting as well. And Zombie says, Anycubic 2 Max is a bit higher at 420 by 500. And ends up seeing mixed reviews on both. Yeah, and that's, that seems to be a thing. No matter what you end up doing, Even if you look at Bamboo Systems or Creality or whatever, you're going to find, some pros and cons on each. I think Bamboo's done an overall pretty good. Of course, Prusa is going to be at the top of the pack for quality control and so on. I think Bamboo and then Creality is, trying to come up there. But when Bamboo ended up locking down their systems, it pissed a lot of people off, and when they lied. But still, and then our whole printer with H2D, nobody asked for a laser engraver. Nobody asked for a leather cutter, paper cutter, pen plotter thing. And if you've done any laser engraving like I have, you know that that's probably the worst combination is to do a 3D printer with a laser engraver, because that dust and soot and debris just gets into everything. So if you look at the maintenance for the H2D, if you do laser engraving, you basically got to take the machine apart. But you can't do all of it, so you're going to get buildup if you do laser engraving. And again, you're going to be locked into their system, and I get it, they're trying to be an X tool or whatever, but that's $2,500, or whatever the price was for that. But it's Neptune 4 Max. I mean, it's definitely to the place now where if you want to get in and print bigger things, you can do it, and there's a number of viable products out there, and you might have some ups and downs, clogged nozzle, this or that, but when you work the kinks out, or if you get a good machine, because it wasn't rough handled during delivery, you could get some really great results on it, Excuse me. So yeah, very, very interesting. I'm still, matter of fact, with my K2 Plus, I recently ordered the ramen, what was it? The ramen bed. Ramen K2 Plus bed. And let me see if I can find that. Here it is. So what I ended up doing, because my K2 Plus is a taco, it's like an upside down taco. So it's not flat. It's barely within the minimum requirements that Creality K2 Plus says is good, and it does okay, but it kind of goes, all the edges are like down, so it's kind of like a taco. But I decided, what I'm going to end up doing was ordering from this ramen.com a graphite bed for the K2 Plus, and no warping, lightweight, fast heating. It's got all that stuff. I got with the heat thing and everything all on that, and it's before and after. You got 0.18, 0.17. There's some people that got some. That's what mine looks like. That's almost, except mine's a little bit worse than that as far as the range. So really looking forward to getting that in. And then I'm also looking at possibly ordering the Micro Swiss hot end for the K2 Plus as well. So really looking forward to that. Do I need it? Absolutely not. But it's I'm retired. I can piddle around and do what I want, but I saw this, and for the price, $170, that's not bad, We'll see what happens. And actually, it's in shipping right now. And since I live in Korea, let me see if I can find it. Excuse me. Dun, dun, dun. Nope, not that email address. Maybe it's my other email address. There it is. Ramen track package. And it ends up, because it's shipping from China, obviously. And so it left China, destination Korea. It's all in Chinese, so I got to translate this. And there it is. So, when did I order this? Order successfully. January, February, March, April, May, June. So I ordered it June 6th and left the warehouse on the 7th. Email left Guangzhou. It's being sent to the next stop, handed over to carrier for transportation on the 9th. Airline receiving on the 9th. And today is the 10th. So yeah, it's on the way. So yeah, that'll be good. Looking forward to that. That should be an interesting thing. And then the other one was that Micro Swiss. Let me see if I can find that. Micro Swiss hot end for the Creality K2 Plus. There it is. Boom. So probably next month, I'm going to pick up one of these as well. Some people that ended up getting one of these on their Ender 5s or Ender 3s, excuse me, on their Ender 3s said it was a really nice setup. It works really well. So, I figured, well, if I'm going to upgrade the bed, let's upgrade the hot end and see how that goes. It's got a leak-proof nozzle, cold nozzle change, which is nice. High flow of up to 50 millimeters cube a second. I think I'm getting like in the 30s or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Better layer adhesion, all metal design, max temperatures up there. So you got the heater core, 0.4 millimeter nozzle, heatsink, 2 titanium mounting screws, and the silicone sock, which is removable, which will be nice because the K2 Plus in their sock is not removable. It's kind of a pain to change out that nozzle, and some people have stripped the threads on that. So I'm hoping this thing will be a lot better in that aspect. But yeah, more flow and all that. Do I need it? No, I don't, but need more power, need more power. If you got that reference, give yourself a gold star. Okay. Well, that's going to be it. It's time for lunch, and I'm getting hungry. I got medicine I got to take to try to get over this flu, but that's what I wanted to end up doing, is talking about the X400 and some of the problems with that, how it was a Kickstarter cash grab, and then we kind of went off the rails and talked about giant robots and Star Wars stuff and Hulks and Warhammer, doing a big build, life-size build, which Zombie Hunter, that would be cool to see that. Big, I want to do one big build, and that's going to be the Hulk. I thought about doing Warhammer, and I'm still kind of, but I think the Hulk, I like the Hulk. And if I can get him to look like, the one I printed out here, that would be the bee's knees. That would be awesome. So, and the more you talk about it, Zombie Hunter, might as well go 6 feet. If you're going to do one, I mean, how to do it right? So anyway, that's what we got going on. A lot of fun stuff being retired here in Korea. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. That will help me get better. Lord knows I've been coughing. Get rid of some of this phlegm and mucus that is plaguing me. But yeah, fun stuff. Be careful, research, do your due diligence when it comes to systems and stuff like that. Look at the reviewers that do really quality review jobs like Aurora Tech Channel, or people that have adopted their systems that they have reviewed as their daily driver, and that says a lot. But when you have reviewers that review something and you never hear them talk and speak of it again, that's a clue that you need to be careful. Anyway, the scrolling ticker, people who bought me coffee, they're cool and awesome. Much respect to those people. And if you want to do that, there's a link in the description box. If you want to contact me, there's my email address, officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. I answer every single email, whether it's about being an expat in Korea, retiring overseas, hobby stuff. Had a number of people send me some cool videos and playlists on how to paint. So yeah, you all are making me better in the things that I do. So, or if you just want to say hi, you can send me and shoot me an email that way. So with that said, we're going to leave this because, again, I need medicine, and we will see you all in the next video. Thanks for the discussion and the fun, and yeah, we'll leave it at that. Peace. Good stuff.